Woo-hoo-hoo. And we're live once again on another Tuesday. And today it's just me. Bitmo Gillian's around here. She's going to help me out today. And I'm live, not previously recorded. I'm really here hoping that the microphone is working this time. So far, everything looks like it's good. And so anyways, I'm going to hop right in and tell you what our topic is about. So today's topic is protect your work. The real perils authors face with book theft. And this, to me, is a serious, serious topic. And since this is sort of my last live for a little while, I'm going to take a break over the summer. I figured I wanted to end my lives this year on a very serious topic. And I can't think of anything more heartbreaking and more serious than this topic. So let me hop right in. Okay, so what would you do if someone stole your life story and profited from it? So this is luckily did not happen to me, but I was doing some research a couple weeks back and I was doing some Google searching. Google, still a Google goddess. I love to Google search. And I was searching about, authors writing late in their life. And I came across this one woman who at 95 actually finally published her life story. And her life story is about being a Holocaust survivor. She was in Auschwitz and now she lives in England. And it took her a very long time to really be able to take her story and put her story out into the world. And I can't think of a more incredible story that we need to learn from history. And yet, let me just go to the slide. This is the book that was published this year. So Renee Salt, she published a book, A Mother's Promise, which is her true story of living and surviving through the Holocaust. Just as a little bit of trivia, she actually married the British soldier who liberated her. So it's just an amazing story. So you would just think, this is great. This is wonderful. She's got her story out in the world. She had a young journalist help her, 18 months of research. They went to Auschwitz. They did records. They did so much to make this book. And yet, within days of publishing her book, there was already AI-generated knockoffs showing up on Amazon. And this woman was absolutely devastated that somebody could take her life story that was so painful and with a click of AI generate books and put them up on Amazon. And sort of insult to injury, look at the names that they published under. The first one was Renee Salt, A Mother's Promise. So they just kind of changed the title around a little bit. But look at the author, Jude Williams. If you know anything about history, if you know anything about the Holocaust, if you know anything about what happened to Jews in Germany and Poland and all these places, they had to wear a yellow star that said Jude, which is German for Jew. So to take that name is like insult to injury. So then a couple days later, another edition came out called From Darkness to Light. Again, Renee Salt's story by Penny Pincher, which is just, another little stab to do that as well. So this to me is horrific. When things like this happen, I was so angry when I read about this that I decided I needed to do something with this emotion I was feeling and really investigate and then put it out there to everybody else what I've been finding out. So to me, book theft is horrible. Authors work so hard to get their stories out, whether it's a fiction or nonfiction or whatever. The writing process is hard. The publishing process is hard. And so I want to educate you today on what I learned. So basically, I came across, and there's probably more, but I came across 3 main types of book theft. So I'm going to go through them. So the first one is content theft. So that's where somebody takes your book, your ideas, and then they turn around and they do like those AI scam people and put that book out there. Now, the problem is there's a difference between a similar story versus an identical story. And this is where it can get so gray with AI and the technology. And so if somebody was to take my book, any of my books, so here's one of my books from expert to author. If somebody was to take my book and then basically make a similar book, not word for word, but a similar book, that's tough because it's not identical. It's when people start taking identical things, word for word, the people, the this, the that, that's when you can kind of have more protection. So apparently, memoirs really are different. And so even though these books were not word for word exactly the same, it's her experiences. It's her name. It's her life experiences. Perhaps if these scammers had changed the name and changed some of the things, she might not have had a leg to stand on. But they actually used her name and her experiences, and they are our own. So we can fight for our own experiences. So that was good to know. So content theft, taking your entire thing and stealing it, that's one way that people get at us. Another thing that people do is what's called identity theft. And that's where they take crappy, schlocky books that they've made and then publish under your name. So this actually happened to somebody quite big in the publishing. She's she's a very well-known person, Jane Friedman, very well-known in the writing and publishing, very well-known, respected author. She's written a lot of really, really good books. And somebody actually approached her and said, you know, a couple of books I saw come out that like seem like they wouldn't be like you, which was kind of like How to Make $1 Million with eBooks, you know, just books that were within her realm, but very sketchy titles. And so anyway, somebody told her this and they said, and you know, I got the book and it's like really bad quality writing and you're an excellent author. So this kind of didn't make sense to me. So it ended up, there was probably about 3 or 4 titles that people had published under Jane Friedman's name, and they were up on Amazon. So of course, she did what anybody would do. She went and, you know, filed a complaint, and Amazon said, well, have you trademarked your name? You know, and she said, well, no. Like, does anybody trademark their name? And they said, well, you know, could be a lot of Jane Friedmans in the world. And it was just like, oh my gosh, you know, how do I fight this? She goes, it's bad enough pirated books like what we talked about before with the content theft. But she said this was stealing her identity. It was stealing her brand. So this was like horrible. So eventually she kind of got through to Amazon that it's like she was very well known in the field. They were acting as if they were her. You know, there was no author page on Amazon. There was a lot of things that you could see that people were just basically trying to pass themselves off as her. And the key thing with Amazon was she got through to Amazon is this is going to confuse readers. And, you know, there was bad reviews, kind of people going, these are books don't look right and this and that. So Amazon took it away. So that was good. Problem was she was listed on Goodreads, and Goodreads is a fabulous website out there, you know, where you can have reviews and different things, but you don't own your author page on Goodreads. And so while you can do stuff with your Amazon author page yourself, on Goodreads, you can't. And so librarians that kind of, you know, tend Goodread, for want of a better word, they said, well, oh, okay. You know, she had to convince them, these are not my books. These are not my books. So eventually they took them off. So just goes to show sometimes you have to do a lot of work to save your own reputation. So then the third type of content theft is companions, which are companion pieces. And these are workbooks and study guides, not by the author and not authorized by the author. And so, for instance, if you go to Amazon yourself and you just go ahead and search for Atomic Habits, James Clear is the author, very famous book, huge bestseller. And yet he never actually did a workbook or a companion guide or anything. But there are literally tons and tons of these out there. So the question is, well, how can this be? They're not authorized by him. How can they do this? Well, it's because there's this thing called fair use, and fair use is a very slippery slope. It's a gray area. And essentially, Amazon is trying to kind of crack down on these. But essentially, if people don't take your book word for word and are just kind of doing something that would be a related piece, they can kind of get away with it unless there's a lot of bad reviews. Then Amazon takes them off. So these are three I found today that are still out there, and there was even more. So this is a gray use. So it makes you realize that if you are writing a book, maybe you should do your own workbook. That's something that kind of came to mind, that it's like, if this is something where people could make a workbook, maybe I should do my own and own my own brand. So again, something to think about. So I want to talk a little bit about copyright, because that really is our best defense against all these scammers and everything they do out there. So I'm just kind of go through some of the fact and the fiction with copyright. So first of all, here's the good news. Everything you write is automatically copyrighted. Before you don't even have to register. Everything you write is automatically copyrighted. And you don't even need to publish your work. So if I wrote a book, it's copyrighted today, even though I haven't published it. Just the very fact that I'm putting it down on paper. Now, this is in the United States, so I cannot speak for the rest of the world. Plus also too, I am not a lawyer. So I only can share as much as I have learned. But according to what I have learned, everything you write is automatically copyrighted. And it doesn't matter if it's not published yet, and it doesn't actually have to be registered to be copyrighted. However, and this is a big but you have to prove it's yours. And that's where it gets tricky. So official copyright is when you actually take your book and you go in the United States, you go through the Copyright Office, which is part of the Library of Congress, and you actually file for copyright for your book. And this can be done before your book is published and after your book is published. So this is actually good because there's a lot of wiggle room here. You can, I'll tell you from my own experience in a minute, but this can be done at any step. Essentially, you want to do it before you're ever in a situation where you have to go to court, because then it's a little too late. But just know there's no, you must do it within 20 days or 15 days or anything. There's no actual time limit on doing that. And the best benefit of an official copyright is that, number one, it proves your ownership in a court of law, and it gives you protection in a court of law. And it allows you to actually sue for damages, sue for court costs, and all sorts of different things. So it may not stop things, but it's good in terms of if you ever needed to go to court, you do have a leg to stand on. And so in order to copyright a book, you should go through the official agency in your country. Don't go to weird spammy things on the internet. Go wherever your country is. If you're in the United States, you're going to go to copyright.gov. If it doesn't end with .gov, it's not the right place. So you want to go through the official agency. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need to have anybody act on your behalf. Everybody can do this themselves. It's easy to do online. I know, I've done it. I did it for my book here, which I published last November. And in December, I started thinking about, I had five books, and I thought, I wonder which ones I would ever, if anything ever happened, which books would I want to fight for? And I decided this is the one, because this ties to my brand the most. The other ones, I love them. They're great books, but this one I would protect in a court of law. So I decided this was a good time for me to actually go ahead and learn how to actually do a copyright. It was fairly simple. It cost me $65. That's not a big deal. So I published in November. In December, December 17th, actually, I applied for the copyright and literally filled out an online form, had to pay $65. And then what I had to do is I had to mail a physical copy of my book to the Library of Congress, which you don't get it back. It's there forever. And now there's a public record. And so that acts as a deterrent. And also, too, if I needed to sue somebody, I do have my physical proof because it is copyrighted. So there's this myth out there that I thought I'd just go ahead and bust, which is called the poor man's copyright. And that is where you take your manuscript and you put it in an envelope and you address the envelope to yourself, and then you mail it back to yourself, and then you don't open it. And then that way, if you ever have to go to court, you have your unopened envelope, and there you go. You can prove that this was your book, manuscript on a certain date, and yada, yada, yada. Well, apparently that does not hold up in court. So that is not recognized as a way to copyright your book. So remember, you don't have to copyright your book. But if you think one day you actually might want to go to court if somebody was to steal your book, do it the right way and go through your country's copyright agency. So, bad news. The title of your book cannot be copyrighted. So my book, From Expert to Author, if you go to you go to Amazon, there are other books with that title. There's nothing you can do. And in a good way, maybe it's okay about this, because it's like, imagine if you had a great title for a book, and then just before you go to publish, you go and you're looking on Amazon and you're like, oh, darn, other people already have that title, but I really wanted that title. Well, you can go ahead. You can use that title. So just know, you can't copyright a title of a book. And so nobody can sue you. You can't sue anybody. Titles are fair game. And so, yep, I could call my book Atomic Habits if I wanted to. But the thing is that it doesn't make sense. So really think those titles through, especially before you assign the ISBN, because once an ISBN is assigned to a title, the ISBN is toast. You can't change it. So what are some other protection strategies that we can use beyond copywriting our book? So the first thing is, be very strategic with your publishing, meaning you want to publish your book in all formats and in all countries at the same time, because that's sometimes what happens, is that people will just publish one bit of it, and then scammers can start going up. It's like the wider your net is cast, and in different formats in different countries, it's less likely to have as much of a competitive advantage for anybody to try and steal your book. So that's just one thing, publishing in all formats in all countries at the same time. Another thing is, set up what's called a Google alert. You just go to your Google account to do this. You can just Google how to do a Google alert. It's really very, very easy. And what you can do is you could put the title of your book, and maybe you could put some key passages that are absolutely unique to your word. So for instance, my good friend, Jeff Young, he might want to have a Google alert for LinkedIn Guru, because that's a very specific thing to Jeff and his brand. So that's really important as well. So think of some key passages, think of some modifications of your title, and set up those alerts. And then Google will just email you whenever they see anything. Plus also too, sometimes it's good to just get those and say, oh, I was featured in somebody's article and I didn't even know it. So those can kind of be good anyways. And then another website you can use is called copyscape.com, where what you can do is you can go ahead and type in some passages from your book, and it will actually go out in the internet and sort of scan everything and look for somebody using those. And then that's another way that you can track down who could be using my stuff out there. So that's a great way as well. And then the other thing is, secure those advanced readers' copies. So just for anybody who doesn't know, a lot of times when we go to publish a book, we want other people to maybe see it in advance beforehand. And therefore, what we might do is put out a PDF to people that we'd say, hey, maybe you'd like to read my book for free before it comes out. I'd really appreciate a review, when I launch the book. This is kind of standard marketing. Everybody does this. But the thing is that you're sending out a PDF. And this is the reason why we don't actually publish PDFs of our book on our website, is because a PDF can just be like hand delivered to, emailed on to everybody else. So there's a couple things you can do. So number one is put a watermark on it. So when Tina and I were doing our book, Your Voice Matters, we put an advanced reader copy watermark on every single page of our PDF. And the other thing that we did is that we only gave this PDF to trusted readers, to people that we knew that we could vouch for. We didn't just say, hey, internet world, is there anybody that would like a PDF copy of our book? We didn't feel comfortable with this. So we narrowed our focus down to only specific people that we knew that we felt comfortable with, and sent them the PDF. And we did it in a very secure way as well. Now, you can go one step further, and there is a program out there called BookFunnel, which I could do a whole show on BookFunnel. I actually am not a customer of BookFunnel, but it's got a lot of really good things. And one of the things it does is it does a secure delivery of your book. So you could do that for free. You can set it up for free. And then people would take would basically have your book, but instead of having a PDF, it would open up on their Kindle. So it kind of makes it a Kindle book that they can go ahead and open up. So anyways, that's just something. It would all be distributed through email. It's not free though, so you do have to pay for it. But it is a good and secure way to deliver those advanced reader copies. Okay, so what are some suggestions for fighting the pirates? Okay, so first of all, keep your eye out for those red flags out there. And this is sketchy stuff that like you just start to see sketchy stuff out there when your eyes are open. I see it all the time now. And things that you want to pay attention to is the author link. If you click on the author link from the Amazon book description, does it go to the Amazon authors page? If there's no authors page, that's a huge red flag, because most authors are going to take the time to create an author page because they want you to know about them. They're not trying to hide who they are. So that's really important. The next thing is look at the description. So here's a book that was from expert to author, not mine, one of the other books from expert to author. And when I read the description, it was actually describing a totally different book. It wasn't even describing this book. It was describing another book, which also looked very sketchy by the same author. And I think it's like 20 pages. It's just really like screams, I'm some sort of sketchy book here. And also too, this book, it looks like it has reviews, but they were just ratings. There's no reviews. So nobody, they just probably got a bunch of people in another country to sit there, like one of these like click farms where they just click, 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 and, they're done with it. So those are the things to look through. Look at the reviews, does it kind of pass that smell test, so to speak? And then another thing is, if you ever see anything, file a complaint with Amazon. If we're talking about Amazon the most, file a complaint with Amazon ASAP. There's actually a complaint form. You just go to amazon.com/report/infringement, and you can actually go ahead and file an actual claim with Amazon. You probably want to have some of your details and documentation, maybe take some screenshots of when you uploaded your book. Be ready to tell them, did you copyright it? Did you not copyright it? All those different things. Maybe even some social media posts where you talked about, here's when I launched the book. All these things that prove that you did it. That's the important documentation that you want to have. So I just want to give you my final thoughts on this whole topic here. So I truly believe that good can win. And so if we go back to the story of Renee Salt, she got those books taken down. Now, she was 95. So if it wasn't for Kate Thompson, who was the co-author, because she was the journalist that basically held Renee's hand, she did all the research, she wrote the book, she was the co-author and she was a journalist. She did all the work. Well, she had the experience that, it was amazing. She actually wrote an open letter to the thieves who used AI to copy the book. And she addressed it, Dear Jude. And it's a very compelling and emotional letter. But in it, she kind of talks about, what she's learned along the way, things like you can't copyright the title, the things of how people let them know. And, the Sunday Times in England got behind it. There was so many people that actually chipped in to help with this. People, asking, putting poor reviews, asking Amazon for their money back for these schlocky ones and all this different thing. And eventually those books got taken down. So good can win out. And I thought it was so important because this was an amazing topic that it's like good should win. This woman survived the Holocaust, for crying out loud. It's like, what kind of world are we that she couldn't tell her story? So I'm glad in this instance, good won, that more than not, people are good and they come together and they help each other. And so what I took away from this is that this was a wake-up call for me that we have to be proactive. We have to think about protecting ourselves because there are scammy people out there, sad to say. But I think that I will look out not only for myself, but I'm going to look out for other authors. And if I see something, I would tell them. I would say, hey, did you know I saw your book on another website and I know that you didn't go there, or, these different things. Let other people know. I'm a good reader in terms of if I go to buy a book, I'll look at the reviews. I check to see if something looks not right and scammy and report it. There's ways that you can report it as a reader, as a customer at Amazon. So I think that if we're keep our eyes open and we're alert, we support each other, we hold hands in the writing community, in the author community, the reading community, I think we can ultimately good can win out. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I'm sorry if it was a little bit of a soapbox. I'll go over to the comments now, but this topic was sort of near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to make sure that I got everything covered. So Jeff says, here to support your last live before your summer break, Gillian. Namaste. I got Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. And he says, scammers beware. Gillian and Bitmo Gillian are on the case. I really hope so. I really hope that somebody's at least got one little aha today from my soapbox of what I had to say. So Mary says, Jeff Young, does she have a superpower cape? I hope I have a superpower cape. It's called standing up for ourselves. And Jeff says, Mary Wu, of course. And Debbie is here. Debbie Weems is here. Hi to Jeff and Mary. I always love the party in the comments. And okay, there we go. Got a mouse going crazy on me here. Pass the popcorn. Hi to G. Good afternoon, Gillian. Leslie Nidix here. Thank you for joining. And we have Kevin. I'm late, but he's in. Yay for Kevin. And better late than never, they all say. Jeff says, my book shows it's copyrighted. Did you do that for me? You published, Gillian. No, I didn't. But if you, on your title page, if you're putting that your book is copyrighted, it is copyrighted. It's not officially copyrighted with the copyright office in your country, but it is still copyrighted because you remember copyright exists as soon as you write that book. Plus also too, some people are actually putting something in their book that says, I don't give my permission for AI to be, to be scanning, to be using this as a training module. I forget the exact word, but a lot of people are doing that to kind of like have some legal claim that nobody should be doing AI to their book in the first place. So Debbie says, good move to get that one copyrighted, Gillian, and also good to know the process is fairly simple. It really is. I was actually so surprised that it was that simple. And also too, that I could actually do it after the book was published, because I was worried. I thought, oh no, I've missed it. I should have done it before I, got it up to Amazon. No, it can be any time. So if you're sitting there with a book and you're like, I did my book a year ago. Is it too late? No, it's not too late. And as long as you do it before a lawsuit, then you're good to go. So Good to know that. So G says, hi, Jillian, listening in while working on something, and we'll have to go back and rewatch and take notes. Ton of gold. Thank you. Jeff says, I've had the LinkedIn Guru Google Alert set up for some time now. Lucky for me. Yeah, that's just like, that's a free service. That's a free service that Google offers. So, you got to go through all the different emails, but it's definitely worth it. People saying hi to each other. Always fun to see that. G says, this was one of my questions. How can we mitigate these things and the red flags? Sketchy stuff and pirates sound scary to me. It is scary. And, I have to be honest with you. Sometimes it's not worth fighting. And that's kind of, that may sound kind of crazy, but it's like, I have actually alerted a couple of authors that I've seen their book on these, not on Amazon, but on some sketchy, weird website where it'll say, free download, or, click here to download. Never click to download anything in the internet. It's like, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So there's a reason they're doing that. So, could there be a virus? Is it a way to get your credit card, your credentials? Who knows? But the thing is that sometimes it's beyond your control. Your book is out there. I know someone personally, and they just said, I just can't even begin to think about what would be involved in fighting this, because this is outside my country. It's out in the world there. And you just have to say, the majority of people are going to go buy your book at the right place. They're going to get your book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or in a bookstore or wherever they're going to get it. So if somebody pirated me and stuck it out on some sketchy website, I would not get a lawyer. I would not be involved, because if it's in a country where I don't have authority to have a lawyer, I'm not going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do this. So there are times where you just go, I'm not going to deal with that, but deal with what you can deal with. So, Amazon is something we can deal with. So I hope that makes sense. And Debbie says, more great info for us budding author. Thanks, Jillian. That was very, very nice. And then G says, I guess I'm a bit confused on why we need to go back and register for copyright if we can already claim the copyright in the front of the book. Okay, the difference is that if you go into a court of law and you definitively prove that you wrote that book, you might say, well, I've got my emails that prove it, and this and this and this. Yes, then that's one thing. The thing is, when you have the official copyright, you have even more proof, right? Because it's now, filed with the Copyright Office. Plus, in court cases, you can sue for damages and legal fees. So that is the difference. And I hope that makes sense. So am I going to do it for every single book? No. The ones that I just feel are my brand, they're important to me. I would not want that work. That's my legacy. I don't want to let go of that. That is the one that I would take the time to copyright. And hopefully I'll never need it, never have to go to court. And I might not go to court anyways. I might just say, oh my God, this is way too much expense. I don't want to do this, but I just want to have the option. So to me, $65, that's not much. That wasn't for the peace of mind that gave me, knowing that book now is sitting in the Library of Congress and it's there. That just makes me feel a whole lot better. So, but at the end of the day, it's up to everybody to make their own decision on whether they want to do that or not. So I hope that makes sense. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I went a little bit longer than I thought, but my soapbox, this is an important topic. So I just want to tell people that I am taking a break for the summer. I'm not going to be live streaming. I'm going to do some live streaming from time to time, but I'm not going to be doing my regular Tuesday live streaming anymore for the summer. But I'm still going to be doing my podcast. So please listen to the podcast. If you haven't already subscribe to the podcast, Easy Peasy Books Podcast. And there'll be all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm still going to, keep in touch. I just want to take a break from live streaming because I'm working on my next book. So that was basically the idea of what I wanted to do. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign off, and I will see you soon. Okay. Bye, everybody.